welcome to an ATS Fully Engaged ATSFE tutorial. My name is Mitch and I'm your host for this episode. Today we'll be discussing aircraft attacks and of course part and parcel that are anti-aircraft attacks. For this discussion, since the Devil's Vineyard Heraklion 1941 module is kind of top of mind for me right now, you might want to check out our battlefield walk around on that one. And primarily it's because its first scenario is all about aircraft attacks. I mentioned that in the battlefield walk-around too. The Germans get 24 Stukas. Their goal is to destroy 6 of the 9 AA emplacements that are around Heraklion airfield. So it's a really good, module or scenario for learning how that works, because you're going to do it over and over and over again. So I kind of put a setup here using the Heraklion Vassal module created by, I believe, Scott Eagles. And I've added a little bit to it so you can see there's a German squad here, and we'll talk about why that guy's there later. And there's a couple of aircraft up here. These are mostly going to be for examples, but we will use the Hurricane, or the Hurricane, as our Commonwealth brethren sometimes say it. Anyway, let's zoom in just a little bit and take a look at some of these aircraft. So an air unit, generally speaking, they mostly carry bombs or other ordnance by SSR, generally napalm. They can be cannon armed or machine gun armed or multiples of that, or rocket armed, and we'll talk about how that works. So if you're looking here at a Stuka, it's armed with 1 500-pound bomb and 4 50-pound bombs, and you know that because the rate of fire is 5. So you subtract 1 for the larger bomb load, and that gives you 4 for the 50-pound bombs. You come on over here to the Hurricane, and you'll notice that it has a 40 millimeter cannon, and also armed with a machine gun with a value of 5, and it has a rate of fire of 2. So if that was firing, it'd fire on the HPT to hit. You can see here this Russian PO2 does not have a large bomb load. It just has 5 50-pound bombs. And then finally we have an American F4U, and you'll notice that it has 2 500-pound bombs. Notice you don't subtract the 1 because there is no smaller bomb load. But it is also armed with a 20 millimeter cannon with a rate of fire of 3. So the interesting thing about air units, and I didn't grab one, if it is an A or a B weapon, then it is a cannon. If it is a C or a D weapon, they're rockets. So if this were, for some reason, 100C, that would mean it's a rocket-armed aircraft. Scroll down a little bit, take a look at some of these AA units. So here we have a Vickers quad and a Bofors 40 millimeter. We'll start with the Bofors. Let me zoom in so you can really see them. So the Bofors 40 millimeter, notice this has a no move symbol or text on there. That's, I think, specifically in Heraklion it has that. I'm not sure if the other one, but also says fixed, just in case you didn't get it. How you know that this is an AA weapon is A, it says AA, but B, it also has an AA range underneath it. So the 40 millimeter is an 8. This Vickers quad is a 14. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then also you notice the Vickers also has a no move. They're all fast turret. Basically have a fast turret symbol on there. That is because AA weapons, covered arc doesn't really apply when shooting at aircraft, all right, unless it's a terrain generated covered arc. They can rotate as many hex sizes as they desired with no modifier to the HPT. Their rate of fire of this, so these guys all have 3, allows them to fire at 3 separate aircraft. They can't fire at the same aircraft 3 times, but they can fire at 3 separate aircraft. And then the range is an interesting thing because the rules talk about ranges in terms of medium machine guns, 37 millimeter, or I'm sorry, 20 millimeter cannons, and 37 millimeter or higher guns. And the ranges are 3, 4, and 8 for those. And so you can see the Bofors, it's a 37 millimeter plus, it's a 40, it has a range of 8. Great. Well, this Vickers has a range of 14. It's not even defined in the rules. So I don't, I'm assuming that we just use the range that's printed on the counter. I'm not a weapons guy. I'm not sure how a 12.7 millimeter, which is basically a 50 cal, has better range than a 40 millimeter cannon. But again, I'm not a weapons guy. That could be velocity of the round, or whatever you want to call it. So that is how the counters are read. So let me zoom out a little bit so we can get some action going here. Oop, maybe a little bit more. There we go. Let me rotate these guys. How it works just in general. So you set a flight path. I'll take a little detour here. The Heraclean Battlefield Walkaround has some optional rules for movement, but we're just going to use the rules as written for how aircraft attacks work. You can read the Heraclean Battlefield Walkaround to figure out how it kind of changes that up a little bit. And there's a little bit about that in the Battlefield Walkaround video that we did. The Battlefield Walkaround itself, the physical one that comes in the module, of course, has the rules. You check for interceptors. In the Heraclean module, there aren't any, but we'll talk about how that works. And then you do anti-aircraft fire. You check for accidental attacks. Otherwise, you use the aerial accuracy chart, which is in the player aid cards. You resolve it. You place ceasefire markers on H and M weapons that are attacked, which is good, right? So you can suppress them if they're not outright destroyed. And then you remove the aircraft from the board, and then you wash, rinse, and repeat. So in this particular scenario from the module, scenario 1 is the Germans are going to get 4 Stukas every turn for up to 24 Stukas. There's actually a 7 turn, but I think that allows you a little bit of wiggle room of getting on and off the map. But anyway, so you're going to do it over and over and over and over and over again, which is good because then you'll get used to it. So to follow that, so basically we'll say this guy is going to come in. Whoop, I grabbed them all. This guy's going to come in here, and we want him to bomb here. So I'm going to put him there, right? Let me get these charts going here so I can remember what we're doing. So we'll put him on the target. So again, in the actual scenario, the British don't have any interceptors, but we'll say that the Hurricane is floating around as well. They can roll to intercept. It's very simple, right? You roll a die. You get a plus 1. Sorry about that. You roll a die, you get a -2 when an interceptor without a bomb load attacks an aircraft with a bomb load. And this is a cumulative with a -1 when an interceptor attacks a Stuka or other SSR designated non-interceptor. So if we were to look, let me zoom in a little bit. If we were to look at this Hurricane, it does not have a bomb load, right? It has cannons. The Stuka has a bomb load, and it's a Stuka. So the Hurricane's going to get a -3 to intercept this aircraft. So if we rolled the die, we would get a 3. That's a result of target aircraft is driven off, remove the intercepted aircraft from the map, but it may attack during a subsequent turn. So in this case, the Hurricane would have driven it off, right? And then that attack is no longer good. But since the Brits don't actually have Hurricanes, I'm just going to get rid of it. We're going to continue on with this. So the next step would be anti-aircraft fire. As a defender, you can use any aircraft weapon to fire along that can reach this flight path at any point in that flight path. So obviously, you probably want to hit it before it gets to the target. So you want to hit it somewhere along this path, right? But you simply trace the range from these weapons, and remember, covered arc doesn't matter. So you can change the covered arc or not as you wish. And then fire. So for instance, if this Vickers wants to fire here, even though it's technically not in the covered arc, which goes this way, right? He had rotated to maybe take a shot at this German paratrooper here, which again, there are no infantry units in the first scenario, but that'll be illustrative later. You can just fire. So you can change the covered arc. Oop. I think I went the wrong way. Look at that. Change the covered arc well within this 14 hex range, right? We'll do this. So it's 6 hex range. Great. The fire itself, the fire resolution itself, is very simple. You roll a die on the chart that's on the player aid card. There's a +1 if you're firing a medium machine gun. These are not medium machine guns; they're heavy machine guns, so there's not going to be a +1. On a 1, you eliminate the aircraft. On a 2 or 3, you drive it off. On a 4 to 9, the aircraft makes its normal attack, but adds +10 on the aerial accuracy chart. Sorry, and then a die roll 10, there's no effect. So we roll a die. It's a 3. That again would drive that aircraft off, and it, it's not eliminated. It's not victory points. It can be used again on a subsequent turn, because the rules as written is once you've dropped your ordnance or been driven off, you go back off map, and then you're eligible to come back on. So let's assume though, and again, so this Vickers, even though it has a rate of fire of 3, can only fire once at that particular target. Now you could also, if you wanted, rotate this Vickers, right? Give it a nice little covered arc and still within range along that flight path, and it could fire. Now we already drove it off with the other one, but say that one missed, well, we could fire again. This would be a 5, and that would give you a +10 on the aerial accuracy diagram. So let's just assume all these guys all take their shot, they miss. Notice there's a medium machine gun down here, but their anti-aircraft range is only 3. So unless you're flying right within the area, then you're done. So now let's go, why is this German squad here? So there's a concept of accidental attack. If there are any onboard friendly units within 3 hexes of a target hex, then you roll for an accidental attack. It's just a single die roll. If it's a 1, the aircraft misses that target and drops it on the friendlies instead. It's that simple. So I rolled a 7. We'll assume that it didn't mistake the Germans in the building for the British. And so you just go on to the attack itself. It's super simple. You find the casualty chart for the bomb loads and you figure it out. So each individual bomb would be rolled for. So in this case, the Stuka could pick off all 5 bombs. So it'd be 4 50-pound attacks and 1 500-pound attack. So if you're looking at the casualty gunfire table, or the casualty table, you will notice that it only goes to 320 plus. So at that point, so on the 50, you're just going to roll on the 50, right? So that's basically a 6 gunfire attack. You're going to roll 4 times to figure out what happens to that thing. For the 500-pounder, you're going to roll on the 320 plus, but you're going to use the heavy bomb load modifier, and that is listed somewhere in there, and I can't remember quite where it is, but it's on there. Anyway, there's a modifier because you're maxing out the table, right? So you'll just at that point it's just a normal casualty attack. So in this case, they are in a weapons pit, so you're going to get whatever that cover would be, right? And then you drop the bombs. That's it. Now, because this guy, and then he's off the map, right? He is done with his bomb load. You just take him off the map. Technically, you can keep shooting at him if you wanted to, but if he's dropped his bomb load, there's probably no point. You're not going to get. I guess you can get some VP if you shoot him down, but that's about it. But more importantly is we put one of these on there, and now, of course, I'm going to have to go find it. Ceasefire. So that, because it got dropped bombs on. Now I didn't roll the resolution right. It might very well have just been destroyed. But if it hadn't been destroyed, it gets a ceasefire marker. So it is no longer in the fight. So when these other 3 Stukas come in, it can't be used as anti-aircraft fire to help, say, this guy when the aircraft comes in. So that is about it for aircraft attacks. Like I said, it's really, really, really simple. I guess I didn't really talk about the aerial accuracy diagram. Once you get to the point where you're ready to drop bombs, you look at the aerial accuracy chart. It's kind of like the OBA, the offboard artillery, right? You're going to roll percentile dice to figure out where you landed, and so a 60 is actually not on target. It would be 1 hex off, so those bombs would have actually dropped here. There would be no ceasefire marker, and this guy lives to see another day. That is pretty much it. If I got anything wrong, please leave it in the comments. If you enjoyed it, please leave that in the comments. Otherwise, look forward to more tutorials on different various aspects of ATS. Thanks again.